Good evening and welcome to The Quiet Scientist. As the world outside settles into silence, allow yourself to breathe a little deeper, relax into your pillow, and let the noise of the day gently fade away. Wherever you are listening from this evening, it is a comfort to have you here. Whether you are visiting for the first time or returning once again, thank you for sharing this quiet moment. My hope is that what follows will be gentle enough to soften your thoughts, slow your breathing, and allow rest to arrive naturally. As we begin our calm drift through science and wonder. There are moments when time does not feel the same as it did a moment before. You might have noticed this. Perhaps you were sitting somewhere quiet or walking along a familiar path, and the minutes seemed to stretch in a way that was difficult to name. Not unpleasant, not strange exactly, just different, as though the rhythm of the world had softened or slowed or opened up into something wider than usual. It happens sometimes in the late afternoon, when the light comes through a window at a particular angle. The room grows still, the sounds outside seem farther away, and time, which had been moving along at its usual pace, begins to feel less urgent, less defined. You might sit there, watching the dust move through the sunlight, and realize that you have no idea how long you've been sitting. It could have been 5 minutes, it could have been 20. The distinction hardly seems to matter. Or perhaps it happens at night, when you wake in the dark and lie there, not quite asleep and not quite awake. The silence is thick. The hours stretch out in both directions, backward and forward, and you cannot tell where you are in the middle of them. Time becomes something you are simply within, rather than something you are measuring or moving through. It drifts around you, formless and slow. These are small moments, ordinary moments, and yet they suggest something that is worth lingering with, worth turning over quietly in the mind. They suggest that time does not always behave in the same way, that it is not always the same kind of thing, that there might be places or circumstances or conditions in which time moves differently, more slowly perhaps, or more quietly, or in a way that is harder to notice. This is not a scientific observation, not yet. It is simply a feeling. A sense that time is not as fixed as we sometimes imagine it to be, that it is not the same in all places, at all hours, under all conditions, that it might, in fact, be something more fluid than we have been taught to believe. The question we are holding, very gently, is this: are there places where time moves slower? It is not a question that demands an answer. It is not the kind of question you solve and then set aside. It is more like something you rest with, something you allow to settle in the room around you, without pressing it, without hurrying toward any particular conclusion. The question itself is enough. The wondering is enough. Perhaps you have been somewhere that felt like time had changed. A forest, maybe, where the trees stood thick and close, and the air was cool, and the light filtered down through the leaves in soft, scattered pieces. You walked slowly, or you stood still, and the minutes seemed to lengthen. The usual hurry of the day fell away. You found yourself moving at a different pace, thinking at a different speed, breathing at a different rhythm. The forest did not rush you. It had no interest in rushing you. And so you slowed, and time slowed with you. Or perhaps it had been slow all along, and you were simply noticing it for the first time. Or perhaps it was by the sea. The waves came in, one after another, steady and unhurried. The horizon stretched out, flat and endless. You sat on the sand, or on a low wall, or on a smooth stone, and you watched the water, and the hours passed without announcing themselves. Time became something that moved like the tide, slow, inevitable, patient. It did not need you to keep track of it. It did not need you to do anything at all. These places feel different, not because anything unusual is happening, not because the clocks are running slower, but because something in the atmosphere, something in the quality of the space itself, seems to invite a different relationship with time, a quieter relationship, a less anxious one. And so the question begins to take on a little more weight, a little more texture. Are there places where time moves slower, not in the sense of a clock ticking backward, or the hands of a watch freezing in place, but in the sense of time becoming something softer, something less insistent, something that does not press against you quite so urgently? It is worth sitting with this idea for a while, not to answer it, not to explain it, just to let it rest there in the quiet, alongside the other thoughts that drift through your mind as the day winds down, as the world grows dim, as the need for clarity begins to loosen. Because there is something restful in the idea that time might not be the same everywhere, that it might be possible to step into a place where the usual rhythms do not apply, where the minutes stretch out and soften, where you are not required to hurry or to measure or to keep pace with anything at all. A place where time simply is, moving at its own speed, in its own way, without needing you to do anything about it. You might think of such a place as a kind of refuge, not a place you escape to exactly, but a place you rest in, a place where the pressure of time eases, where the ticking and the counting and the scheduling fall away, and what remains is simply the quiet passage of moments, one into the next, without urgency, without destination. There are rooms like this, rooms that feel as though they exist outside the usual flow of things. Perhaps you have sat in one. A library, maybe, with high ceilings and thick walls and rows of books that seem to absorb sound. The air is still. The light is soft. People move slowly, if they move at all. And time, which outside the building is rushing forward, here seems to pause, or at least to slow down, to become something you can move through at your own pace. Or a waiting room, late in the evening, when there is no one else around. The chairs are empty. The fluorescent lights hum faintly. The clock on the wall ticks, but you do not really hear it. You are simply there, sitting, waiting for nothing in particular, and time drifts past you, unnoticed and uncounted. These are not magical places. They are not special in any obvious way, but they feel different. They feel as though time has loosened its grip, just a little, as though the usual rules do not quite apply. And perhaps that is all we mean when we ask whether there are places where time moves slower. We mean, are there places where time feels different, where the experience of time changes, where the way we hold time, the way we relate to it, the way we move through it, is not the same as it is elsewhere? This is a quieter question than the one we started with. It is less about physics, less about clocks and measurements and objective facts, and more about something softer, something more interior. It is about the feeling of time, the texture of it, the way it presses against us, or does not press against us, the way it shapes the moments we live through. And this is where the question begins to open up, to become something we can rest with, rather than something we need to resolve. Because the feeling of time is not something that can be pinned down or explained away. It is not something that fits neatly into a single answer. It shifts, it changes, it depends on where you are and who you are with, and what you are doing, and what you are thinking, and 100 other things that are difficult to name. Sometimes time feels fast, sometimes it feels slow, sometimes it feels like it is not moving at all, and perhaps the truth is that all of these feelings are true in their own way. That time is not one thing, but many things, that it is not fixed, but fluid, that it does not move at a single unchanging pace, but adjusts itself constantly to the shape of the moment. This is not an answer, of course. It is simply a way of holding the question, a way of letting it breathe. Because the question itself is restful. There is something soothing in the idea that time might be more flexible than we imagine, that it might be possible to find places where it slows down, where it eases, where it gives us a little more room to breathe, where we are not always rushing, always measuring, always trying to keep up. And so we sit with the question, without pressing it, without hurrying it along. We let it settle in the space around us, the way the evening settles, the way the darkness gathers quietly at the edges of the room. We do not need to know the answer. We do not need to understand it fully. We simply need to rest with the possibility that time is not as fixed as we sometimes believe, that it is softer than we think, that it might, in certain places, at certain moments, move more slowly. There is a kind of peace in this, a kind of quiet, because if time can slow down, if it can stretch and soften and ease, then perhaps we do not need to hold it quite so tightly. Perhaps we do not need to count every minute, measure every hour, worry about whether we are using our time wisely or well. Perhaps we can simply let it move, let it drift, let it carry us along at whatever pace it chooses. And perhaps, in those moments when time does slow down, when the minutes lengthen and the hours soften, we are being given a gift, a small reprieve, a chance to rest, to breathe, to simply be, without the usual pressure to do, to achieve, to move forward. These are the moments worth noticing, the quiet afternoons, the still mornings, the long, slow nights when sleep is close, but not quite here, and time drifts around you like water, formless and gentle. These are the moments that suggest the answer to our question might not be a place on a map or a point in space, but something more intimate, more personal. A state of mind, perhaps, a way of being, a willingness to let go of the usual rhythms, the usual expectations, and allow time to move at its own pace, in its own way. And so we return to the question, not to answer it, but to hold it, to let it rest there, in the quiet, to wonder, without urgency, whether there are places where time moves slower, to notice the moments when it seems to appreciate the softness, the stillness, the gentle stretching of the hours. We do not need to know why this happens. We do not need to explain it, or understand it, or prove it. We simply need to notice it, to rest with it, to let it be. Because the question is not really about time at all in the end. It is about how we live, how we move through the world, how we hold the moments we are given, whether we rush through them or whether we allow them to stretch, to soften, to become something we can rest in. And perhaps that is enough. Perhaps the question itself, the wondering, the quiet noticing, is all we need. Perhaps the answer does not matter as much as the asking, as the willingness to slow down, to pay attention, to let time move as it will, without trying to control it or measure it or hurry it along. And so we sit here in this quiet space, holding the question gently. Are there places where time moves slower? Perhaps, perhaps not. Perhaps it depends. Perhaps it changes. Perhaps it is different for each of us, in ways that are difficult to name. But the question remains, soft and open, like the evening light, like the quiet between thoughts, like the slow drift of hours when there is nowhere to go and nothing to do, and time itself becomes something you rest in rather than something you move through. And that perhaps is where we begin, with the question, with the wondering, with the quiet willingness to let time be whatever it is, wherever we are, without needing it to be anything else. Time is not something we see. It is not something we touch. It is not an object in the world, not a thing we can point to or hold in our hands. And yet we experience it constantly in ways that are so familiar we rarely stop to notice them. We feel time passing. We sense its movement. We live within it, carried along by its current, even though we cannot say exactly what it is. But the feeling of time is not always the same. Sometimes it moves quickly. Sometimes it moves slowly. Sometimes it seems to disappear altogether, and we lose track of where we are in the day, in the hour, in the moment. And sometimes it stretches out so long, so wide, that a single afternoon can feel like it contains more space than an entire week. This is what we mean when we talk about time as experience, not time as it is measured by clocks, not time as it appears in equations or schedules or calendars, but time as it feels, time as we live it, time as it unfolds around us, shaping the texture of our days, the rhythm of our thoughts, the weight of our memories. There are afternoons that seem to last forever. You know the kind. Perhaps you were sitting in a room, or lying in a field, or watching the clouds move across the sky. The light was soft, the air was warm, or cool, or perfectly still, and the minutes stretched out, one after another, without any sense of hurry. You were not waiting for anything. You were not trying to get anywhere. You were simply there, in the slow, unhurried passage of the hours. These afternoons feel different from the rest of time. They feel longer, somehow, wider, as though the usual boundaries have loosened, and the moments are no longer packed tightly together, but spread out, allowing more room, more breath, more stillness. You might have been doing very little, reading, perhaps, or watching the light change, or simply sitting, thinking, letting your mind wander wherever it wanted to go. And yet the time felt full. It felt rich. It felt like something you could settle into, something that held you without pressing you forward. This is time as experience. This is time as something that is not fixed, not constant, but something that shifts and changes depending on how we are living it, depending on what we are doing, depending on where we are and what we are noticing, and how we are holding the moment. There are also nights like this, long, quiet nights when sleep is far away and you lie in the darkness, listening to the silence. The hours stretch out. They move, but they move slowly, so slowly that you begin to lose your sense of where you are in them. Is it late? Is it early? Is it the middle of the night or nearly morning? The darkness does not tell you. The silence does not tell you. And so you drift, suspended in time, neither moving forward nor backward, but simply existing within it. These nights feel endless, not in a troubling way, not in a way that makes you anxious or restless, but in a way that suggests time has softened, has opened up, has become something you can rest in. The minutes do not press against you. The hours do not demand anything. They simply are, and you are simply within them. And there is a kind of peace in that. This is what it means to experience time, to feel it, not as something external, something imposed from outside, but as something that is woven into the very fabric of your awareness, something that changes as you change, something that moves at different speeds depending on what you are doing, what you are feeling, what you are paying attention to. Sometimes time moves quickly because we are not noticing it. We are busy. We are distracted. We are moving from one task to another, one thought to another, one moment to another, without pausing, without settling. And in the rush, time slips past us, uncounted and unnoticed. The day is over before we realize it has begun. The week is gone. The month has passed. And we wonder where it went, how it could have moved so quickly, why we have so little memory of it. But other times, time moves slowly because we are present. We are noticing. We are paying attention to the details, the small things, the subtle shifts in light and sound and feeling. And in that noticing, time expands. The moments become longer, more vivid, more full. A single hour can feel like it contains more life, more awareness, more presence than an entire day spent rushing. This is not a new idea. It is something people have noticed for as long as people have been thinking about time. The experience of time is not the same as the measurement of time. A minute on the clock is always 60 seconds. But a minute in experience can feel like anything at all. It can feel like a breath. It can feel like an eternity. It can feel like nothing or like everything, depending on what we are doing, what we are feeling, what we are noticing. And so we begin to see that time is not one thing. It is many things. It is the ticking of the clock, yes, but it is also the feeling of waiting, the feeling of rushing, the feeling of drifting, the feeling of being suspended in a moment that seems to last forever. There are moments when time seems to stop altogether. Not literally, of course. The world continues to move. The clock continues to tick. But in your experience, in your awareness, time ceases to flow in the usual way. You are caught in a single instant, a single breath, a single thought, and everything else falls away. The past and the future dissolve. There is only now, only this, only the stillness of the present moment, stretching out in all directions, vast and quiet and complete. These moments are rare, perhaps, but when they happen, they feel unmistakable. You might be looking at something beautiful, a sunset, maybe, or a face, or a pattern of light on water, and for a moment, you are completely absorbed. You are not thinking about anything else. You are not planning or remembering or worrying. You are simply there, present, awake, alive to the moment. And time, which had been moving along at its usual pace, seems to pause or to slow down so much that it becomes almost imperceptible. This is time as experience. This is time as something that is shaped by our attention, by our presence, by the quality of our awareness. When we are distracted, time rushes past. When we are present, time slows down. When we are fully absorbed, time seems to stop altogether. And this suggests something important, something worth lingering with. It suggests that the experience of time is not fixed. It is not something that happens to us, independent of who we are or what we are doing. It is something we participate in, something we shape, even if we do not realize we are shaping it. Something that responds to the way we live, the way we pay attention, the way we hold the moments we are given. There are places where this is easier to feel, places where the usual distractions fall away, and the experience of time becomes softer, slower, more spacious. A quiet room, perhaps, a forest, a shore, a hillside at dusk. These places do not change time itself, not in any physical sense, but they change the way we experience time. They invite us to slow down, to notice, to pay attention. And in that slowing down, in that noticing, time itself seems to change. You might have been walking somewhere quiet, somewhere far from the noise and hurry of the city. The path was long, the trees were thick, the light was soft and dappled. And as you walked, you noticed that you were not in any hurry. You were not trying to get anywhere. You were simply walking, step after step, breathing the cool air, listening to the sounds of birds and wind and your own footsteps on the earth. And the time, which might have felt short if you had been rushing, felt long, felt generous, felt like something you could settle into. The walk might have taken an hour or 2 hours or half a day, and yet it did not feel like you were losing time. It felt like you were gaining it, like you were living more fully in each moment, rather than rushing through them to get to the next thing. This is what happens when we slow down, when we pay attention, when we allow ourselves to simply be in the moment, rather than constantly moving toward the next one. Time stretches, it softens, it becomes something we can rest in, rather than something we are constantly chasing. And there are also moments when time contracts, when it speeds up, when it rushes past so quickly that we can barely keep track of it. These are the moments when we are not present, when we are distracted, when our minds are somewhere else. We are thinking about what we need to do later. We are worrying about something that happened earlier. We are planning, or remembering, or rehearsing conversations in our heads. And in that distraction, the present moment slips away. Time moves quickly because we are not really in it. This is not a judgment. It is simply an observation. It is natural for the mind to wander. It is natural to think about the past and the future. But when we do, when we are not fully present in the moment, the experience of time changes. It becomes faster, thinner, less substantial. The hours pass, but we do not really experience them. They move through us, rather than us moving through them. And so we begin to see that the question we are holding, are there places where time moves slower, is not really about places at all, or at least not only about places. It is also about states of mind, states of being, ways of paying attention. Because time, as we experience it, is shaped by how we are living, by whether we are present or distracted, by whether we are noticing or not noticing, by whether we are rushing or resting. There are afternoons that feel like they will never end. Long, lazy afternoons in summer, perhaps, when the heat presses down and everything slows to a crawl. You are lying on the grass, or sitting in the shade, or floating in cool water, and the time stretches out, endless and unhurried. You are not thinking about what comes next. You are not worried about what you should be doing. You are simply there, in the slow, sweet passage of the hours. And those hours feel different. They feel longer than other hours, not because they actually are longer, not in any measurable sense, but because you are living them more fully. You are noticing them. You are present in them. And in that presence, they expand. They become richer, more vivid, more real. This is the paradox of time as experience. When we try to hold on to time, when we try to control it or measure it or make the most of it, it slips away. It moves quickly. It escapes us. But when we let go, when we simply allow ourselves to be in the moment without trying to do anything with it, time slows down. It opens up. It becomes something we can rest in. And there are also moments when time feels heavy. Not slow exactly, but weighted, dense, as though each minute contains more than it should, more than it can comfortably hold. These are often difficult moments, moments of waiting perhaps, or moments of grief, or moments of loneliness, when the silence presses in and the hours stretch out and there is nothing to do but endure them. These moments feel long, but not in the way that a peaceful afternoon feels long. They feel long in a way that is uncomfortable, oppressive, as though time has thickened and you are wading through it, struggling to reach the other side. And yet, in a strange way, these moments also reveal something about the nature of time as experience. They show us that time is not neutral. It is not the same in all circumstances. It is shaped by what we are feeling, by what we are going through, by the emotional texture of the moment. And so time becomes a kind of mirror. It reflects back to us the quality of our experience. When we are happy, engaged, absorbed, time flows easily. It moves quickly, or it moves slowly, but it moves in a way that feels natural, effortless. When we are suffering, when we are bored, when we are anxious, time becomes difficult. It drags, it resists, it refuses to move at the pace we would like it to move. This is why time feels so different in different situations. Why an hour spent doing something you love can feel like it passes in an instant, while an hour spent waiting in discomfort can feel like it will never end. The clock measures the same 60 minutes, but the experience is entirely different. And this is what we mean when we talk about time as experience. We mean that time is not just something that happens to us, something we passively receive. It is something we live, something we feel, something that is shaped by who we are, where we are, what we are doing, what we are feeling. It is intimate. It is personal. It is always changing. There are quiet nights when you cannot sleep, and the hours stretch out, dark and silent. You lie there, listening to the sounds of the house, or the sounds of the street, or the sounds of your own breathing, and time moves so slowly that you begin to wonder if it is moving at all. The minutes feel like hours, the hours feel endless, and yet, in the morning, when you finally drift off, it will feel like no time has passed at all. This is the strange, fluid nature of time as experience. It does not follow the rules of the clock. It expands and contracts according to its own logic, its own rhythms, and we, living within it, can only notice, can only feel. can only wonder at the way it changes, the way it shifts, the way it refuses to be pinned down or measured or understood. And so we rest with this. We allow time to be what it is, in this moment, in this experience. We do not try to control it. We do not try to make it move faster or slower. We simply notice it. We feel it. We let it carry us along at whatever pace it chooses. Because time, as experience, is always here, always present, always unfolding, moment by moment, breath by breath, in the quiet spaces between thought and action, between waking and sleeping, between now and what comes next. Perhaps time is woven into the places we inhabit. Perhaps it is not separate from the world, but part of it, threaded through the landscape, through the architecture, through the very air we breathe. Perhaps each place carries its own rhythm, its own pace, and when we enter that place, we begin to move at the speed it moves. We begin to feel time as that place feels it. This is not something we can measure. It is not something we can prove with instruments or calculations. It is simply something we might notice if we are paying attention. The way time feels different in different places. The way it seems to slow down in some places and speed up in others. The way certain spaces seem to hold time differently, as though they have their own relationship with it, their own understanding of what it means to move through the hours. You might have felt this in a forest. The trees stand tall and close, their branches forming a canopy overhead. The light filters down in soft, scattered pieces. The air is cool. The ground is soft with fallen leaves. And as you walk through this forest, as you move between the trees, you begin to notice that time feels different here. It feels slower, quieter, more patient. The forest is not in a hurry. It has been here for a long time. It will be here for a long time still. And in its presence, in the midst of its ancient, unhurried existence, you find yourself slowing down as well. Your footsteps become quieter. Your breathing becomes deeper. Your thoughts become less urgent, less scattered. And time, which outside the forest might have been rushing along, here seems to ease, to soften, to move at the pace of growing things, of roots reaching down into the earth, of leaves turning slowly from green to gold. This is not your imagination, or perhaps it is. Perhaps it does not matter which. What matters is the feeling, the sense that this place, this forest, holds time differently than other places do, that it invites you into a different rhythm, a different pace, a different way of being. And there are other places like this, places where time seems to have its own quality, its own texture. A church, perhaps, old and quiet, with thick stone walls and high vaulted ceilings. You step inside, and the noise of the street falls away. The light is dim, the air is still, and time, which outside was measured in minutes and hours, here seems to be measured in something else entirely, in centuries, perhaps, in the slow accumulation of prayers and silences, in the patient endurance of stone and wood and glass. You sit in one of the pews, or you stand near a wall, or you simply pause in the middle of the space, and you feel the weight of the place settling around you. It is not oppressive. It is not heavy in a way that makes you uncomfortable. It is simply present. The building has been here for a very long time. It has witnessed countless moments, countless lives, countless passages from birth to death and back again. And in that long, slow witnessing, It has developed a relationship with time that is different from the relationship you carry with you from the outside world. Here, time does not rush, it does not demand, it does not press you forward. It simply is, and you, standing within it, begin to feel that stillness, that patience, that willingness to let time move at its own pace, without interference, without anxiety, without the need to control it or measure it or make it serve any particular purpose. This is what we mean when we wonder whether time behaves differently in different places. We do not mean that the clocks run slower. We do not mean that the laws of physics change. We mean something quieter, something more subtle. We mean that the feeling of time, the experience of it, the way it moves through our awareness, is shaped by where we are, by the qualities of the place we inhabit, by the atmosphere, the history, the presence of the space around us. And perhaps this makes sense. Perhaps it is natural that time would feel different in a forest than it does on a busy street. Natural that it would feel different in an old church than it does in a shopping centre. Natural that it would feel different by the sea than it does in the middle of a city. Because these places are so different, they carry different energies, different rhythms, different invitations. The sea, for instance. You stand at the edge of the water, watching the waves come in, one after another, steady and unhurried. The horizon stretches out, flat and endless. The sky is wide. The air smells of salt. And time, here, feels like it has all the time in the world. The waves have been coming in like this for thousands of years. They will continue to come in like this for thousands more. They do not hurry. They do not pause. They simply continue, patient and inevitable, moving at a pace that has nothing to do with human schedules or human concerns. And in the presence of this endless, patient rhythm, you find yourself slowing down as well. You are not in a hurry. You have nowhere to be. You are simply here, at the edge of the sea, watching the water, listening to the sound of it, feeling the wind on your face, and time, which might have felt urgent before, here feels spacious, generous, as though there is more of it than you could possibly use. This is not because the sea has changed time. It is because the sea has invited you into a different relationship with time. It has shown you that time can move slowly, that it does not always need to rush, that there is room always for patience, for stillness, for the quiet unfolding of one moment into the next. And there are small places too that hold time differently. A corner of a garden, perhaps, where the light falls just so, and the plants grow thick and wild. You sit there on a bench, or on the ground, or on a low stone wall, and you watch the insects moving through the flowers, and the shadows shifting across the grass, and the leaves turning gently in the breeze. And time here feels slow and thick, like honey, like something you could almost hold in your hands. Nothing is happening really, nothing of consequence. The world is simply being itself, quietly, without urgency. And you, sitting within it, become part of that quietness, part of that lack of urgency. You are not separate from the garden. You are not observing it from the outside. You are in it, of it, moving at its pace, breathing at its rhythm, feeling time as it feels it. This is what places can do. They can change the way we experience time, not by doing anything to time itself, but by inviting us into a different way of being, a different pace, a different rhythm, a different quality of attention. And perhaps this is why we remember certain places so vividly, why they stay with us long after we have left them, because they gave us a different experience of time. They allowed us to slow down, to rest, to simply be, without the usual pressure to move forward, to accomplish, to keep pace with the demands of the world. There is a room you might remember. Perhaps it was in a house you visited once, or a building you passed through. The room was empty, or nearly empty. The walls were bare. The floor was wood or stone, or carpet worn soft with age. And when you stepped into that room, you felt something shift. The air was different, the light was different, and time, somehow, was different. You stood there for a moment, or for several moments, just looking around, just feeling the space. And in that looking, in that feeling, you became aware that this room held time in a way that was unusual. It was not in a hurry. It was not trying to be anything other than what it was. It was simply there, patient and still, offering itself to anyone who entered, offering a place to pause, to rest, to let the usual rush of the day fall away. And perhaps you stayed there for a while. Perhaps you sat down, or leaned against a wall, or simply stood in the middle of the room, breathing the quiet air, feeling the stillness settle around you. And time, which had been moving quickly, slowed down. It became something you could feel, rather than something you were racing against. It became soft and spacious and kind. This is what certain places do. They hold time gently. They do not rush it. They do not fill it with noise or distraction or demand. They simply let it be, let it move at its own pace, let it unfold in whatever way it needs to unfold. And we, when we enter these places, are given the gift of that gentleness. We are given permission to slow down, to stop rushing, to stop measuring, to stop worrying about whether we are using our time well or wisely or efficiently. We are simply allowed to be in the presence of time without needing to do anything about it. There are places high up too, where time feels different. Mountains, perhaps, or hills, or tall buildings with windows that look out over the city. You stand at the top, looking down, or looking out, and the world below seems small and distant. The movement of traffic, the hurry of people, the constant rush of activity, all of it is far away, muted, softened by distance. And up here, at the top, time feels slower. It feels as though you have stepped outside the usual flow of things, as though you are watching time from above, rather than being caught up in it. The hours do not press against you. The minutes do not demand your attention. You are simply here, high up, looking out, breathing the cool air, feeling the wind, and time drifts past you, unhurried and unconcerned. This is another way that places can hold time, by giving us distance, by lifting us up, or setting us apart, or creating a boundary between us and the usual rush of the world. And in that distance, in that separation, we find a different experience of time, one that is quieter, slower, more reflective. And there are also places that feel like they exist outside of time altogether. Ruins, perhaps. Old buildings, crumbling and empty, overtaken by ivy and moss. You walk through them, carefully, stepping over fallen stones, ducking under broken beams. And you feel as though you have entered a place that no longer belongs to the present, that belongs instead to some other time, some other era, some other way of being. The clocks of the world do not reach here. The schedules and appointments and deadlines do not apply. This place has been abandoned by the usual mechanisms of time, and in that abandonment, it has found a kind of freedom, a kind of stillness. It simply is, without needing to keep pace with anything, without needing to move forward or change or adapt. And you, walking through it, feel that stillness. You feel the absence of urgency. You feel the way time has softened here, has loosened, has become something more like memory than like the present moment. And in that softening, in that loosening, you find a kind of peace. Because perhaps this is what we are really asking when we wonder whether there are places where time moves slower. We are asking whether there are places where we can escape the usual pressure of time, where we can step outside the rush, the demand, the constant forward motion, where we can simply rest for a while in a different rhythm, a different pace, a different way of being. And the answer, it seems, is yes, there are such places. They are not magical. They are not separate from the world, but they hold time differently. They invite us to slow down, to notice, to be present. And in that invitation, they give us a different experience of time, one that is quieter, softer, more spacious. The world is full of these places, if we are willing to notice them. A quiet street in the early morning, a library in the middle of the afternoon, a garden at dusk, a hillside under the stars. Each of these places has its own relationship with time. Each of them invites us into a different rhythm, a different pace, a different way of experiencing the hours. And perhaps what we are really discovering is that time is not separate from the world. It is not something that exists independently, ticking away in some abstract realm. It is woven into the fabric of the places we inhabit. It is shaped by the light, the air, the sounds, the textures of the world around us. It is part of the landscape, part of the atmosphere, part of the very ground we walk on. And so when we ask whether there are places where time moves slower, we are really asking whether there are places that hold a different kind of time, a quieter time, a more patient time, a time that is not measured by clocks and schedules, but by the rhythm of the earth, the movement of the light, the slow unfolding of the natural world. And the answer, again, is yes. There are such places. And when we find them, when we enter them, when we allow ourselves to be held by them, we discover that time can be something other than what we thought it was. It can be gentle. It can be spacious. It can be a place to rest rather than a thing to fight against. And so we wonder quietly, without urgency, about these places, about how they hold time, about what they teach us, about the way they invite us to slow down, to notice, to be present. We wonder about the forests and the seas and the old quiet rooms. We wonder about the mountains and the gardens and the ruins. We wonder about all the places where time feels different, where it moves at its own pace, where it refuses to be hurried or measured or controlled. And in that wondering, we find ourselves slowing down as well. We find ourselves breathing more deeply. We find ourselves noticing the quality of the light, the texture of the air, the rhythm of our own thoughts. We find ourselves perhaps stepping into a different relationship with time, one that is less anxious, less urgent, less concerned with the constant forward motion. We find ourselves for a moment in a place where time moves slower, Not because the world has changed, but because we have changed, because we have allowed ourselves to notice, to feel, to rest in the quiet presence of the world around us. And that, perhaps, is enough. What if time is not the fixed thing we imagine it to be? What if it is not rigid, not constant, not the same in all moments and all circumstances? What if it is something softer than we have been taught to believe? Something that can bend or stretch or drift, depending on where we are and how we are and what we are paying attention to? This is not a question that requires an answer. It is simply something to hold gently in the quiet. A possibility, a way of thinking about time that is less concerned with precision, less concerned with measurement, and more open to the feeling of time, the experience of it, the way it moves through us and around us in ways that are difficult to name. Because perhaps time is not as solid as we think. Perhaps it is more like water, flowing at different speeds depending on the landscape it moves through. Sometimes fast, when the terrain is steep and the current is strong. Sometimes slow, when the land is flat and the water spreads out, wide and shallow, barely moving at all. And we, living within time, are carried along by this current. Sometimes we move quickly, sometimes we move slowly, sometimes we drift, suspended, neither moving forward nor backward, but simply floating in the stillness, in the quiet space between one moment and the next. This is what it means to let time loosen, to release the idea that it must always be the same, to allow it to be fluid, changeable, responsive to the world and to our own awareness, to stop holding it so tightly, stop trying to control it or measure it or make it behave in the ways we expect it to behave. There are moments when we can feel this loosening, moments when the usual structure of time seems to dissolve, and what remains is something softer, something less defined. You might be lying down, resting, not quite asleep but not quite awake. The boundaries between past and present and future begin to blur. You are thinking about something that happened years ago, and it feels as though it is happening now. Or you are imagining something that might happen tomorrow, and it feels as though it has already happened, as though you are remembering it rather than anticipating it. And in this blurring, in this softening of boundaries, time itself begins to feel less fixed, less certain. It is not moving in a straight line from past to future. It is moving in circles or spirals, or not moving at all, but simply existing, all at once, without clear divisions, without clear direction. This is a strange feeling. It can be disorienting sometimes, but it can also be peaceful, because when time loosens in this way, when it stops being something we have to keep track of, something we have to manage, it becomes something we can simply rest in, something that holds us rather than something we are constantly chasing. And perhaps this is closer to what time really is, not a line, not a series of discrete moments marching forward one after another, but something more like a pool or a field, or a vast open space in which everything is happening at once, or in which nothing is happening at all, depending on how we look at it. There are traditions, old ways of thinking, that have always understood time this way, not as something linear, not as something that moves only forward, but as something circular, something that returns, something that spirals back on itself, bringing the past into the present, bringing the future into the now. These ways of thinking do not measure time, they do not count it. They simply live within it, moving with its rhythms, its cycles, its patterns. And in those traditions, there is often a sense that time is not separate from the world, not separate from the seasons, the weather, the movement of the sun and the moon and the stars. Time is the world. It is the turning of the earth, the growth of plants, the movement of animals, the rise and fall of the light. It is not an abstract thing, not something that exists independently. It is woven into everything, inseparable from the fabric of existence itself. And if time is like this, if it is not separate but woven in, then perhaps it makes sense that it would not always move at the same pace. Perhaps it would move slowly when the world is slow. Perhaps it would move quickly when the world is quick. Perhaps it would drift or pause or circle back, depending on the rhythms of the earth, the rhythms of our own bodies, the rhythms of our own awareness. This is a different way of thinking about time, a way that is less concerned with clocks and calendars and schedules, a way that is more concerned with feeling, with presence, with the quality of the moment. And in this way of thinking, the question of whether there are places where time moves slower becomes less about physics and more about experience, less about what is happening objectively and more about what is happening in our awareness, in our perception, in the way we are relating to the world around us. And perhaps, in this way of thinking, the answer is yes. There are places where time moves slower, not because time itself is different there, but because we are different there, because we have let go of the need to measure, to control, to keep pace, because we have allowed time to loosen, to become something softer, something more fluid, something we can move through at our own pace, in our own way. There is a kind of freedom in this, a kind of relief, because if time is not fixed, if it is not something we have to constantly manage or fight against, then perhaps we can relax. Perhaps we can stop worrying about whether we are using our time well, whether we are being productive enough, whether we are making the most of every moment. Perhaps we can simply be, and let time be whatever it is, without needing to control it or understand it or measure it. This is not easy, of course. We have been taught, all our lives, to think of time as something precious, something scarce, something we must use wisely. We have been taught to measure it, to schedule it, to divide it into neat, manageable pieces. And there is value in that, certainly. There are times when we need to keep track of time, when we need to meet deadlines, when we need to coordinate with others. But there are also times when we can let go of all that. Times when we can allow time to loosen, to soften, to become something we do not need to manage. Times when we can simply drift, without direction, without purpose, without any particular goal in mind. And in those times, time itself begins to feel different. It begins to feel less like something we are moving through, and more like something we are simply within. Less like something that is passing, and more like something that is present, always present, surrounding us, holding us, carrying us along without any effort on our part. You might have felt this on a quiet afternoon, when there was nothing you needed to do and nowhere you needed to be. You were sitting somewhere comfortable, or lying down, or standing by a window, watching the light move across the floor. And as you sat there, or lay there, or stood there, you began to notice that you were not thinking about time. You were not checking the clock. You were not wondering how long you had been there or how long you would stay. You were simply there, in the moment, and time was simply there with you, moving at its own pace, or not moving at all. It hardly mattered which. And in that forgetting, in that letting go of the need to measure or track or manage, time became something softer, something kinder. It was not pressing against you. It was not making demands. It was simply flowing around you, through you, like air, like light, like something so natural and unobtrusive that you barely noticed it at all. This is what happens when we let time loosen. It becomes less noticeable, less urgent, less like a thing we have to do something about. And in that lessening, we find a kind of peace, a kind of ease, a sense that we are not separate from time, not fighting against it, but simply moving with it, at whatever pace it moves, without resistance, without anxiety, without the need to be anywhere other than where we are. And perhaps this is what we have been looking for all along. Not a place where time moves slower, exactly, but a way of being in which time does not feel so heavy, a way of being in which we are not constantly aware of time passing, constantly worried about running out of time, constantly trying to make the most of the time we have. Because when we let time loosen, when we release our grip on it, we discover that there is always enough of it. Not in the sense that we have more hours in the day, but in the sense that the hours we have feel more spacious, more generous, more able to hold whatever we need them to hold. This is a paradox, perhaps. The less we try to control time, the more time we seem to have. The less we worry about wasting time, the less time feels wasted. The less we measure time, the richer it becomes. And so we begin to see that the problem is not time itself. The problem is the way we hold it, the way we grip it tightly, anxiously, as though it might slip away from us at any moment. The way we try to pack it full, to use every minute, to make sure we are not wasting any of it. The way we treat it as something scarce, something precious, something we can never have enough of. But what if time is not scarce? What if there is always enough of it, if we are willing to let it be what it is? What if the tightness, the urgency, the anxiety we feel around time is not because time is limited, but because we are holding it too tightly? And so we practice loosening, we practice letting go, we practice allowing time to be fluid, to be soft, to move at its own pace without our interference. We practice sitting with time, being with time, without needing to do anything about it. And in this practice, we begin to notice something. We begin to notice that time is always here. It is not something we can lose. It is not something that runs out. It is simply the medium in which we live, the space in which everything happens. And it is always present, always available, always moving, always still, depending on how we look at it. There are afternoons when time seems to stop, when the world grows quiet and the light grows soft and everything pauses just for a moment, just for a breath. And in that pause, you feel it. You feel the loosening. You feel the way time is not fixed, not solid, not unchanging. You feel the way it drifts, the way it softens, the way it opens up into something vast and formless and peaceful. And you rest there, in that opening, in that softness. You do not try to hold on to it. You do not try to make it last. You simply allow it to be, for as long as it is, and when it passes, as it will, you let it go, easily, without regret. Because this is what it means to let time loosen. It means not grasping, not holding, not trying to control or preserve or make permanent. It means allowing time to flow, to change, to move in whatever way it needs to move, without resistance, without fear. And in that allowing, we find a kind of freedom, a kind of spaciousness, a sense that we are not trapped by time, not limited by it, but simply moving through it, with it, as it, in a way that is natural and effortless and easy. There are nights when you lie awake, and the darkness is thick, and the silence is deep, and time feels like it has dissolved completely. There is no sense of minutes or hours. There is no sense of before or after. There is only the present moment, stretching out in all directions, infinite and still. And in that dissolution, in that letting go of all structure, all measurement, all division, you feel something shift. You feel the way time is not what you thought it was. You feel the way it is softer, more fluid, more willing to bend and stretch and drift than you ever imagined. And you lie there in the darkness, in the silence, and you let time be whatever it is. You do not fight it. You do not try to make it move faster or slower. You simply rest in it as you would rest in water, allowing it to hold you, to carry you, to move you gently through the night. And perhaps this is all we need. Perhaps this is the answer we have been looking for, though it is not really an answer at all. Perhaps we simply need to let time loosen, to stop holding it so tightly, to allow it to be fluid, to be soft, to be something we move through with ease rather than something we fight against. Perhaps we simply need to trust that time is here, always here, and that it will hold us, and that we do not need to control it or measure it or make it into something it is not. Perhaps we simply need to let go, and in that letting go, to discover that time is not our enemy. It is not something we need to conquer or manage or defeat. It is simply the space in which we live, the medium through which we move, the gentle, patient, ever-present flow that carries us from one moment to the next, without effort, without struggle, without any need for us to do anything at all. And so we rest, we breathe, we let time loosen, let it drift, let it become soft and formless and kind. And in that softening, we find ourselves held, carried, moved gently through the hours, through the days, through the quiet, endless unfolding of now. There are moments when we stop noticing time altogether, moments when the hours drift past without marking themselves, without announcing their passage, without leaving any trace we can point to. The clock on the wall continues to tick, perhaps. The sun continues to move across the sky. But we are not aware of these things. We are simply here in the present, and time is simply here with us, moving so quietly, so gently, that it becomes invisible. This is slowness without clocks. This is time that has become so soft, so unhurried, that it no longer feels like something separate from us. It is not something we are tracking. It is not something we are measuring. It is simply the medium in which we exist, the quiet background of everything, barely noticeable, barely there at all. You might have experienced this on a long afternoon, sitting somewhere quiet, somewhere still. Perhaps you were in a room with a window and the light was coming through, soft and warm. Perhaps you were outside, under a tree, with the leaves moving gently overhead. Perhaps you were simply lying down, resting, with your eyes half closed, not quite asleep, not quite awake. And in that quietness, in that stillness, you stopped thinking about what time it was. You stopped wondering how long you had been there, or how long you would stay. You simply were, and time simply was. And the two of you existed together, peacefully, without any need for measurement, without any need for awareness. This is what happens when time becomes slow enough. It stops being noticeable. It stops being something we pay attention to. It becomes like the air we breathe, like the light that surrounds us. Essential, ever present, but so constant, so steady, that we forget it is there at all. And perhaps this is the slowest kind of time. Not time that we feel stretching out, not time that we are aware of moving slowly, but time that has become so slow, so gentle, that it disappears entirely from our awareness. Time that simply is, without asking anything of us, without demanding our attention, without needing to be noticed. There is a certain peace in this, a certain quietness. When we are not thinking about time, when we are not checking it, when we are not aware of it passing, we are free, free to simply be in the moment, without the weight of the past, without the pull of the future. Free to rest in the present, in the simple fact of being here, now, without needing anything else. And in that freedom, time moves at its own pace, slowly, perhaps, or quickly, or not at all. It hardly matters, because we are not measuring it. We are not comparing one moment to another. We are simply living, breathing, existing, and time is doing the same, moving alongside us, around us, through us, so quietly that we cannot tell where we end and it begins. This is the kind of slowness that does not announce itself, the kind of slowness that you only notice later when you look up and realize that the light has changed, or the room has grown darker, or the day has somehow passed without your noticing, and you think for a moment about how time moved so slowly that you were not aware of it moving at all, how it was there, but not there, present, but invisible. There are places where this happens more easily, places where the usual markers of time fall away, and what remains is simply the gentle, unhurried presence of the moment. A quiet room, perhaps, a forest path, a hillside at dusk, a corner of a garden where the world seems to pause, where the usual rush and hurry do not reach, where time softens into something barely noticeable. And when you are in these places, you stop checking the time. You stop wondering what you should be doing, where you should be going, what comes next. You simply are, and time simply is. And together, you rest in a kind of companionable silence, neither needing anything from the other. This is slowness without clocks. This is time that has no need to mark itself, to measure itself, to prove its existence. It is simply here, like the ground beneath your feet, like the sky above your head, always present, always available, always moving at its own quiet pace, without needing you to notice or acknowledge or pay attention. And perhaps this is what we have been moving toward all along. Not a place where time moves slowly in a way we can feel or measure, but a place where time becomes so slow, so gentle, so soft, that it ceases to be something we think about at all, where it becomes simply the space in which we live, the medium in which everything happens, the quiet background of existence. There are afternoons like this, long, lazy afternoons when nothing much is happening, when you are simply sitting somewhere or lying somewhere, watching the light, listening to the sounds, feeling the air on your skin. And the time passes, but you do not notice it passing. You are too absorbed in the moment, too present, too here, to think about time as something separate, something to be tracked or measured. And when you finally do think about it, when you finally do wonder what time it is, you are surprised. Surprised by how much time has passed, or how little. Surprised by the way it moved so quietly, so unobtrusively, that you were not aware of it at all. This is the gift of slowness. Not that time moves slowly in a way that feels slow, but that it moves so slowly that it stops being something we notice, that it becomes invisible, formless, woven so completely into the fabric of the moment that we cannot separate it out, cannot point to it, cannot say where it is or how fast it is moving. And in that invisibility, there is a kind of rest, a kind of peace, because when we are not thinking about time, we are not worried about time. We are not anxious about whether we have enough of it, whether we are using it well, whether we are wasting it or making the most of it. We are simply here, and time is simply here, and everything is as it should be. There are nights like this too, quiet nights when you lie in the darkness, not quite asleep, and the hours drift past so gently that you do not feel them. You are simply there, in the stillness, in the silence, and time is there with you, moving so slowly, so softly, that it might as well not be moving at all. And you rest there, in that slowness, in that quietness. You are not trying to fall asleep. You are not trying to do anything. You are simply being, and time is simply being. And together you exist in a kind of peaceful suspension, where nothing needs to happen, where nothing needs to change, where everything is already complete, just as it is. This is what slowness feels like when it becomes slow enough. It feels like nothing. It feels like stillness. It feels like the absence of movement, the absence of change, the absence of anything that needs to be noticed or tracked or paid attention to. And perhaps this is the slowest time of all. Not time that we feel moving slowly, but time that has become so slow that it has stopped feeling like time at all. Time that has dissolved into the moment, into the stillness, into the quiet presence of being here now, without past or future, without beginning or end. There is a room you might remember, or perhaps you are in it now, a quiet room with soft light, with walls that seem to hold the silence gently. And in this room, time does not hurry, it does not press, it does not demand. It simply is, so quietly, so gently, that you forget it is there. And you sit in this room, or lie in this room, and the minutes pass, or the hours pass, or perhaps no time passes at all. It is impossible to say, because you are not counting, you are not measuring, you are simply here, resting, breathing, existing in the slow, quiet space that has opened up around you. And time, in this space, is not something you think about. It is not something you notice. It is simply the medium in which you rest, the invisible background of everything, moving so slowly, so imperceptibly, that it has become part of the stillness itself. This is slowness without clocks. This is time that needs no measurement because it is not concerned with measurement. It is not concerned with going anywhere or arriving anywhere or proving anything. It is simply here, always here, moving at a pace so gentle, so patient, that it feels like no pace at all. And you, resting in this slowness, find that you are not concerned with measurement either. You are not worried about the time. You are not checking it, wondering about it, trying to manage it. You are simply letting it be, letting it move or not move as it will, letting it hold you gently in its quiet, invisible current. There are moments scattered through the days when this happens, when time becomes so slow that it disappears, when we stop noticing it, stop thinking about it, stop being aware of it in any conscious way. These moments are not dramatic. They are not special. They are simply quiet, simply ordinary, simply there. A moment of looking out a window and seeing the trees moving in the wind. A moment of feeling the warmth of sunlight on your face. A moment of hearing a bird singing somewhere far away. A moment of simply breathing, simply being, simply existing without thought or plan or purpose. And in these moments, time is there, but we are not aware of it. It is moving, but we are not tracking it. It is passing, but we are not counting it. We are simply in the moment, and the moment is simply here. And time has become so woven into the fabric of the experience that we cannot separate it out, cannot notice it as something distinct. This is the slowness we have been moving toward. This is the place where time does not feel fast or slow, but where it does not feel like anything at all, where it has become so soft, so gentle, so quiet, that it has merged with the silence, with the stillness, with the simple presence of being. And perhaps this is all we need. Perhaps this is what we have been looking for. Not a place where time moves slowly in some measurable way, but a place where time becomes so slow, so invisible, so unnoticeable, that we can finally rest, finally let go, finally stop worrying about time and simply exist within it, peacefully, quietly, without effort or concern. Because when time becomes this slow, when it becomes this invisible, we are free, free from the pressure to do more, to accomplish more, to make every moment count, free from the anxiety of time running out, of not having enough, of wasting what we have, free to simply be here, now, in this moment, which is all we have ever really had, and all we will ever need. And so we rest in this slowness. We allow time to become invisible. We allow it to move so quietly, so gently, that we forget it is there. We allow ourselves to simply be, without tracking, without measuring, without counting the hours or the minutes or the seconds. We simply are, and time simply is, and together we exist in a kind of peaceful quietness where nothing needs to happen, where nothing needs to change, where everything is already complete, already whole, already at rest. The light moves across the room, or perhaps it does not. The shadows lengthen, or perhaps they stay the same. The world continues, or perhaps it pauses. It is difficult to say, because we are not watching, we are not measuring, we are simply here, in the slowness, in the quietness, in the gentle, invisible passage of time that has become so slow it might as well have stopped. And we rest here, we breathe here, we exist here, in this place where time moves without being noticed, where it carries us gently, invisibly, through the hours, through the darkness, through the quiet spaces between waking and sleeping, between thought and stillness, between being and nothing at all. This is slowness without clocks. This is time that needs no marking, no measuring, no acknowledgement. This is simply the quiet presence of the moment, stretching out, softening, becoming so slow, so gentle, so invisible that we can finally let go of our need to notice it, to track it, to hold it in our awareness. We can finally simply rest, simply be, simply allow time to move as it moves, at its own pace, in its own way, carrying us gently, quietly, into whatever comes next, without our needing to know what that is, or when it will arrive, or how long it will take. We rest, we drift. We let time become what it has always been beneath all our measuring and counting and worrying. Something quiet, something gentle, something so slow, so soft, so present that it disappears completely, leaving only the moment, only the breath, only the quiet, peaceful stillness of simply being here, now, without past or future, without beginning or end. The question is still there, somewhere. Are there places where time moves slower, but it feels less urgent now, less like something that needs an answer, and more like something that simply exists, quietly, in the background? A thought that drifts past, soft and unhurried, without demanding anything from us. Perhaps we have been holding this question all along, turning it over gently, considering it from different angles, allowing it to rest in the quiet spaces of our awareness. And perhaps now, as the light grows dim, as the day settles into evening, or as the night deepens into something darker and more still, the question begins to fade. Not disappear, exactly, but soften, become less distinct, less important. Because maybe the question was never really about finding an answer. Maybe it was simply about sitting with something, about allowing ourselves to wonder, without pressure, without urgency, without needing to arrive anywhere in particular, about letting our thoughts drift, the way clouds drift across the sky, the way leaves drift on water, moving slowly, changing shape, eventually dissolving into something else entirely. And so the question drifts. It moves away from us, or we move away from it. It is difficult to say which. The distance grows, gently, imperceptibly, the way evening grows darker, the way silence grows deeper. And we let it go. We do not chase it. We do not try to hold on to it. We simply allow it to drift, to fade, to become part of the quiet background of everything. There are places where time moves slower, or perhaps there are not. Perhaps time is always the same, and it is only our experience that changes. Or perhaps time is never the same, always shifting, always different, depending on where we are, who we are, what we are noticing. Perhaps both of these things are true. Perhaps neither of them is true. Perhaps the truth is something we cannot name, something that exists in the spaces between words, between thoughts, between one breath and the next. And perhaps it does not matter. Perhaps the question itself was simply a way of settling, of softening, of allowing ourselves to slow down enough to notice the way time feels, the way it moves through us, around us, the way it holds us, carries us, releases us, the way it is sometimes fast and sometimes slow, and sometimes barely there at all. We do not need to know the answer. We never did. The question was enough. The wondering was enough. The quiet time spent considering, reflecting, allowing the thoughts to come and go without holding on to any of them too tightly. That was always enough. And now, as the question begins to drift away, we find ourselves simply here, simply present, simply resting in the moment, without needing to understand it, without needing to name it, without needing to do anything with it at all. The room is quiet, or perhaps you are outside, and the world is quiet. The sounds are far away, muffled, softened by distance or by darkness, or by the simple fact of the hour. Everything has slowed down. Everything has grown still. And in that stillness, the question fades a little more, becomes a little less clear, a little less present. Are there places where time moves slower? The words themselves are starting to feel distant now, starting to feel like something you thought about a long time ago, in another moment, another state of mind. And that is all right. That is as it should be. Because questions are not meant to be held forever. They are meant to be considered and then released, turned over in the mind for a while, and then allowed to drift away, making room for other things, for rest, for silence, for the simple, quiet presence of being here, without thought, without question, without anything at all. There was a forest, perhaps, or a sea, or a quiet room with light coming through a window. There were moments when time seemed to stretch, to soften, to become something different from what it usually is. And we noticed those moments. We held them gently. We allowed ourselves to wonder about them, to consider what they might mean, what they might suggest about the nature of time, about the way we experience it, about the places that hold it differently. But now those moments are fading too, not gone, never gone, but becoming softer, quieter, less immediate, becoming memories, or perhaps not even memories, but simply impressions, a feeling of slowness, a feeling of peace, a feeling of time loosening, drifting, becoming invisible. And we let those feelings settle. We let them sink down deeper and deeper until they become part of the quiet foundation of everything, until they are no longer something we are thinking about, but simply something we are resting in, something that holds us gently without our needing to be aware of it. The question is almost gone now, almost faded completely into the background, and in its place there is simply this, simply the quiet, simply the stillness, simply the gentle, unhurried passage of time, moving so slowly now, so softly, that it might not be moving at all. We are not measuring it, we are not tracking it, we are not wondering about it anymore. We are simply here, in this moment, which is all there is, which is all there has ever been, which is all we need. Perhaps time is moving slowly here. Perhaps it has stopped altogether. Perhaps it is moving quickly, and we simply do not notice. It does not matter. We have let the question go. We have let the need to know go. We have let everything go, except the simple fact of being here, breathing, resting, existing in this quiet space where nothing needs to happen, where nothing needs to change, where everything is already complete. The darkness is settling, or perhaps it has already settled. The light is fading, or perhaps it has already faded. The world is growing quieter, softer, more distant, and we are growing quieter too, softer, more distant from our thoughts, from our questions, from everything except the simple, peaceful presence of the moment. Are there places where time moves slower? The question is barely a whisper now, barely a thought. It drifts past, light as air, light as breath, and we do not reach for it. We do not try to hold it. We simply let it go, let it fade, let it become part of the silence, part of the darkness, part of the quiet, gentle space that surrounds us. And in letting it go, we find that we are free, free from the need to know, free from the need to understand, free from the need to do anything at all except rest here, in this place, in this moment, where time is whatever it is, moving however it moves, and we are simply here with it, peacefully, quietly, without question, without concern. There were afternoons, there were nights, there were moments when time stretched and softened and became something we could rest in. And we did rest in them. We allowed ourselves to slow down, to notice, to be present. And those moments gave us something. They gave us a sense of peace, a sense of spaciousness, a sense that time is not always rushing, not always pressing, not always demanding, that it can be gentle, that it can be kind. And now, as we let the question drift away, we carry that sense with us, not as something we are holding on to, not as something we are trying to preserve, but simply as something that has become part of us, part of the way we move through the world, part of the way we hold time and the way time holds us. The question is gone now, or nearly gone, faded into the background, into the silence, into the deep, quiet stillness that surrounds everything. And we are simply here, simply breathing, simply being, simply resting in the gentle passage of time, which may be fast or slow or neither, but which is always here, always present, always carrying us gently forward or backward or nowhere at all. We do not need the question anymore. We do not need the answer. We simply need this quiet, this stillness, this sense of being held softly, gently, in the invisible current of time, which moves without hurry, without urgency, without any need for us to notice it or measure it or understand it. We simply rest. We simply breathe. We simply allow ourselves to be here in this moment, which is slowly fading into the next moment, which will fade into the next and the next, each one soft and quiet and unhurried, each one holding us gently, carrying us gently into whatever comes next. And perhaps what comes next is sleep, or perhaps it is simply more of this, more quiet, more stillness, more gentle, invisible time, moving so slowly that we do not notice it moving at all. More moments of rest, of peace, of being held in the soft, dark space where questions fade away and only the quiet remains. The world is very quiet now, very still. The sounds have all but disappeared. The light has all but gone. And we are here in the darkness, in the silence, resting in a place where time has become so slow, so soft, so invisible that it no longer feels like time at all. It feels like nothing, like everything, like the quiet, peaceful space between breaths, between thoughts, between being and not being. Are there places where time moves slower? Perhaps we asked this once. Perhaps we wondered about it, thought about it, considered it from many angles. But now the question has drifted away, and we cannot quite remember why it seemed important, cannot quite remember what we were looking for, cannot quite remember anything except this quiet, this stillness, this gentle, invisible presence of time, which is here but not here, which is moving but not moving, which simply is, in a way that requires nothing from us, asks nothing of us, expects nothing of us at all. We rest in this. We allow ourselves to be held by this. We let go of everything else, the questions, the thoughts, the need to know, the need to understand. All of it drifts away, slowly, gently, until there is nothing left except the quiet and the darkness and the soft, invisible passage of time, which may be carrying us towards sleep or toward waking or toward some other state entirely that has no name, no description, no way of being understood, except by being in it, by allowing it, by resting in it completely. And so we rest, we allow, we let the question fade until it is gone. We let the thoughts fade until they are gone. We let everything fade until there is only this, only the quiet, only the stillness, only the gentle, invisible time that moves so slowly it is barely moving at all, carrying us gently, softly, into the deep, peaceful darkness where nothing needs to be known, nothing needs to be understood, nothing needs to be anything except what it already is. The question has drifted away, and we have let it go. And in letting it go, we have found what we were looking for all along. Not an answer, not a place, but simply this quiet, this rest, this sense of being held in time, by time, as time, without separation, without effort, without anything at all except the simple, peaceful fact of being here, now, in this moment, which is all there is, and all there will ever be, and all we have ever needed. We rest, we breathe, we let go, and time, gentle and invisible, carries us softly into the quiet, into the darkness, into the deep, peaceful stillness where all questions fade away and only the rest remains. The darkness is very soft now, very gentle. It surrounds everything, and we are within it, resting, breathing, allowing ourselves to simply be held by it. The question that we were holding, the question about time, about whether it moves slower in certain places, has drifted so far away now that we can barely remember it. It is like something from another time, another place, another version of ourselves that existed before this quiet, before this stillness, before this deep, peaceful rest. And perhaps that is as it should be. Perhaps questions are meant to fade. Perhaps they are meant to drift away, slowly, gently, until all that remains is the quiet space they leave behind. A space where we do not need to know anything, where we do not need to understand anything, where we simply exist, peacefully, in the soft darkness, in the gentle silence, in the invisible passage of time that moves so slowly now that it feels like it is not moving at all. We are simply here, simply breathing, simply being. And time is here too, so quiet, so still, so woven into the fabric of the moment that we cannot separate it out, cannot point to it, cannot say where it is or what it is doing. It is simply here, like the air, like the darkness, like the silence that holds everything. The room is very still, or perhaps we are not in a room at all anymore. Perhaps we are somewhere else, somewhere quiet, somewhere far from the usual rush and hurry of the world, a place where time has always moved slowly, or perhaps has never moved at all, a place where the hours do not matter, where the minutes do not count, where there is only this moment, this breath, this gentle, invisible presence of being. And we rest here. We allow ourselves to sink deeper into this stillness, deeper into this quiet, deeper into the soft, formless space where time dissolves, where thoughts dissolve, where everything dissolves except the simple fact of being here, now, without past, without future, without any sense of movement or direction or purpose. There is nothing to do. There has never been anything to do. We have simply been here, all along, resting in this quiet space. And the question, the wondering, the thinking about time and places and slowness, all of that was simply something that passed through, something that came and went, like clouds passing through the sky, like breath moving through the body. It came, it drifted, it faded away, and now there is only this. The silence is very deep. It fills everything. It is not the absence of sound exactly, but something more, something fuller, a kind of presence that is so complete, so total, that it does not need sound, does not need words, does not need anything at all to make itself known. It simply is, and we are within it, held by it, part of it. And time is like this too, not the absence of time, but something fuller, something that is so completely present, so completely here, that it does not need to move, does not need to pass, does not need to mark itself in any way. It is simply here, always here, and we are simply here with it, resting, breathing, existing in a way that requires no effort, no thought, no awareness of anything except this quiet, this stillness, this gentle, invisible now. Perhaps we are drifting, perhaps we have been drifting all along, not toward anything, not away from anything, simply drifting, the way a leaf drifts on water, the way a cloud drifts across the sky, moving, but not moving, going nowhere, but somehow still traveling, held by something we cannot name, carried by something we cannot see, resting in something we cannot understand except by being in it, by allowing it, by letting go of everything else. The darkness is very soft. We may have noticed this before, or perhaps we are noticing it for the first time. It does not matter. Time has become so slow, so soft, so formless, that there is no difference between before and now, between noticing and not noticing, between being aware and simply being. Everything is the same. Everything is here. Everything is held in this gentle, quiet space where nothing changes, where nothing needs to change, where everything is already complete. We breathe slowly, gently, and the breath moves through us like time itself, invisible, necessary, so natural, so constant that we hardly notice it. It comes in, it goes out, it carries us, moment by moment, through the darkness, through the silence, through the deep, peaceful stillness that has no beginning and no end. And perhaps this is what we were looking for all along. Not a place where time moves slower, but a place where time is simply this, simply the quiet, gentle passage of breath and being, simply the invisible current that carries us, holds us, moves us without our needing to do anything at all, simply the soft, formless presence that is always here, always now, always holding us in its gentle, patient arms. The question has gone. The need to know has gone. The need to understand has gone. All of it has drifted away, leaving only this quiet, this rest, this sense of being held so completely, so gently, that we do not need anything else. We do not need answers. We do not need clarity. We do not need time to be anything other than what it is, moving slowly or quickly, or not at all. It hardly matters which. We simply rest. We simply breathe. We simply allow ourselves to be here, in this moment, which may last forever, or which may already be over, or which may never have begun. Time has become so loose, so fluid, so impossible to measure, that these distinctions no longer mean anything. There is only the now, only the quiet, only the gentle, invisible presence of being. And in this presence, we find a kind of peace that we did not know we were looking for. A peace that is not the absence of anything, but the presence of everything. A peace that is so complete, so total, that it fills every corner of our awareness, leaving no room for worry, for anxiety, for the need to control or understand or make sense of anything. We are simply here, and that is enough. It has always been enough. The world continues, somewhere perhaps. The clocks continue to tick, somewhere perhaps. But here, in this quiet space, in this deep stillness, none of that reaches us. None of that touches us. We are held in a place where time has become so soft, so gentle, so invisible, that it no longer feels like time at all. It feels like rest. It feels like peace. It feels like the deep, quiet darkness that holds everything, that has always held everything, that will always hold everything, without effort, without struggle, without any need for things to be different from what they are. And we rest in this. We allow ourselves to be held by this. We let go of the last threads of thought, the last whispers of questions, the last faint traces of the need to know or understand or make sense of the world. We let it all drift away, slowly, gently, until there is nothing left except the quiet and the darkness and the soft, invisible passage of time that moves so slowly it might as well be stillness itself. The breath continues, in and out, so slow, so gentle, so steady, and time moves with it. Or perhaps time is it, each breath a moment a breath, each one the same as the last, each one different, each one here and then gone and then here again, in an endless, gentle rhythm that asks nothing of us except that we allow it, that we rest in it, that we let it carry us wherever it is going, or nowhere at all. And we do. We allow. We rest. We let ourselves be carried gently, softly, through the darkness, through the silence, through the deep, peaceful space where all questions have faded, where all answers are unnecessary, where there is only this, only the now, only the quiet, invisible presence of time, which is so slow, so soft, so completely woven into the fabric of being that we cannot tell where it ends and we begin. We are time. Time is us. There is no separation. There never was. And in this dissolution of boundaries, in this gentle merging of self and moment, of breath and being, of now and forever, we find a rest so deep, so complete, that nothing else is needed. Nothing else has ever been needed. This is enough. This has always been enough. The darkness holds us. The silence holds us. Time holds us, so gently, so softly, that we can finally let go completely. Finally release the last bit of effort, the last bit of holding on, the last bit of trying to be anything other than what we are, which is simply here, simply now, simply resting in the gentle, invisible passage of moments that may be slow or fast or timeless, but which are always, always here. And so we rest, we breathe, we drift gently, softly, through the quiet darkness, through the deep stillness, through the invisible now that stretches out in all directions, endless and peaceful and complete. There is nothing more to wonder about, nothing more to question, nothing more to seek or find or understand. There is only this, only the quiet, only the rest, only the gentle, invisible time that holds us, carries us, moves us softly, slowly, into the deep, peaceful darkness where everything is still, and everything is quiet, and everything is exactly as it should be. The darkness is here, the quiet is here. We are here, breathing softly, resting in the gentle stillness that holds everything. Time has become so slow, so invisible, that it no longer feels like something